Welcome back on this Monday to These Things Are Written. Friday, we focused on Exodus chapter 20, the giving of the law, and after that, there were other commands that followed, other rules, guiding principles, you could say, as they were going, would continue to live as his people. We are continuing with those. These are not moral laws, they are more civil laws. Again, laws for the nation of Israel to keep and to follow so that they might know how God desires them to live as a people, to keep them safe, to keep chaos from happening in their world. Let's start with verse 1. Now, these are the rules that you shall set before them. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years. Then in the 7th, he shall come out free for nothing. If he comes in single, he shall go out single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife and she bears him a son or sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out alone. But if the slave plainly says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him to God, and he shall bring him to the door or the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall be a slave forever. Now, an important part to this passage, when we look at it, to remember what God desires. All right, does this mean, this whole passage about slavery, does this mean that God condones slavery, that he says that it is okay and is permissible and is a good thing? If you read that into this passage, then you are very mistaken. As we look at this passage, it is more of a result of sin in this world. I'm going to have you bring to mind Mark chapter 10. Mark chapter 10, the Pharisees are coming up to Jesus and they say, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife or not? Jesus says, what does the law say? The law says that Moses said that it was okay for a man to put aside his wife, to divorce his wife. Jesus says that these were written because of the hardness of your heart. Okay, that has to do with marriage, not with slavery. What am I talking about here? I'm talking about it's the hardness of a heart that causes people to have slavery. What slavery would happen here? Now, these are rules concerning a Hebrew slave. There is some discussion in here that the Hebrew is not just a person of the Jewish lineage, but also could be anyone living in that land. They're not sure about that, a lot of discussion. But what it does say is the way Hebrews would go into slavery is if they were in debt and needed to pay off that debt. To pay off that debt, they could be sold to someone who would pay off that debt for them. Then they would have to work for that person 6 years. On the 7th year, they would be able to be set free. That's what God commanded. This part about coming in single, going out, showing God's care for the person who puts himself into that position that would need to be a slave. This is not slavery as we have read about it in early America that led to the Civil War. This is slavery in a way of their own kind, in a way to pay off the bills for them and to have them work for them. Again, it could be permanent if the slave desires. Let's move on to verse 7. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she should not go out as the male slaves do. If she does not please her master, who has designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to foreign people, since he has broken faith with her. If he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her as with a daughter. If he takes another wife to himself, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital rights. If he does not do these three things for her, she shall go out for nothing, without payment of money. Okay, this is another confusing part as we look at it with the slavery. A way to look at this is if a man sells his daughter to be a bride for another man. Really, that's what it is talking about here. And in many ways back then in that society, women were treated that way. That's where the understanding of a dowry came from, for the person to pay the price to the father for the wife, for the daughter in some ways, I should say. If she does not please her master, in other words, if he does not want her to continue to be his wife, then he shall let her be redeemed. That would be bought back by her relatives to be able to bring her into freedom. Also, this idea of being redeemed is kind of what's behind the book of Ruth, kinsman redeemer, that Boaz was for Ruth in a different way, but similar to that. If he does not, he shall not sell her to any foreigners, it says there. He shall not diminish her food, her clothing, marital rights. Her rights to have children is included in those marital rights. If he does not do these things, then she shall go free for nothing. A way, again, because of sin in the world, that God would allow the woman to have her freedom after being sold by her father, pretty much, to be the man's wife. Again, very different from our culture. We have a hard time understanding it, but I believe that's what he is saying in this passage. And doing some research in my commentary, that's kind of where I came as well. Let's continue with verse 12. Whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death, but if he does not lie in wait for him, but God lets him fall into his hands, then I will appoint for you a place to which he may flee. But if a man willfully attacks another to kill him by cunning, you shall take him from my altar that he may die. This will turn later into the cities of refuge when they settle into the promised land. But for now, that would be the altar. That's why in verse 14, you shall take him from my altar. The altar would be a place where they could go for refuge, to be heard. It's in a way the difference between murder and manslaughter. If it's premeditated murder, then that would lead to death. If it was not, then they could try to plead their case and show that it was that more of an accident or not planned death. Again, we have similar things in our legal system. I'm not a lawyer. I never pretend to be one, but that's how I read this. Again, more accidental death or purposeful death. The purposeful death will be the punishment will be death. Verses 15 through 17. Whoever strikes his father or his mother shall be put to death. Whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him shall be put to death. Whoever curses his father or his mother shall be put to death. Wow. All right. The verse 15 and verse 17, whoever strikes or curses his father or mother shall be put to death. That's a violation of the fourth commandment, not showing respect for parents or for those who are in authority over them, specifically focusing on parents here. Again, a reminder for us and how that is the one with a promise and a curse for those who honor their parents. This is how you honor your parents in a small way, a pretty easy way, isn't it? The verse 16 ties into this whole idea of slavery. Whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him shall be put to death. So anyone who makes someone else a slave, who was not putting himself up to be sold to pay that debt, but steals him and puts him as slave, they should be put to death. Again, that is a direct shows that slavery, as it was intended, or as it was in the United States, with people stealing people from overseas, bringing them in. We can also see this as a violation that human trafficking does today. All right, I've talked too much already, but there's a lot we needed to explain here. We'll be back tomorrow, I guess that is, with Exodus chapter 22. Make sure you read through the rest of this chapter. There are more things, more of these guiding principles, guiding rules that Moses gives as well. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. You can email me at cburma@peacecolumbus.org. God bless.